Yes, yesterday. Actually, I was busy this afternoon, so I didn't glue myself to a TV or anywhere to listen to the budget. I caught up with it later. Anyway, the budget unveiled by Nicola Willis was billed, as I said, as a fiscal restraint. The country's navigating itself through a slower economic growth. Treasury's updated forecast pegs GDP growth at 2.9% for the year ending June 26. That's down from earlier expectations, while inflation's expected to stay steady at around 2.1%. Education got a solid boost, $2.5 billion spread over 4 years. Standout feature, $53 million, going towards covering teacher registration and practicing certificate fees through 2028. That's a win for around 115,000 educators. Law and Order also saw support, nearly $500 million, going to police for over 4 years to keep frontline services running, and also $246 million to unclog the country's overloaded court system. For businesses, this was the headline act. The new tax incentive. Companies will be able to write off 20% of new assets, purchases like tools or machinery. Families will see changes as well from April next year. The Best Start payment will become fully income tested. That cutting out households earning over $97,000. KiwiSaver tweaks. Yes, you would have caught up on that. Government contribution will drop to 25 cents per dollar saved, maxing out at $261 a year. And minimum contributions from both the employee and employer will slowly increase from 3% to 4%. High earners making over 180K will lose government contributions altogether, while 16 and 17-year-olds will become eligible for the first time. And speaking of young people, 18 or 19-year-olds applying for job seeker or emergency benefits will now need to prove their parents can't support them. So, I mean, there's a bit there, but you see, I did that in 90 seconds? And they talked about it all day yesterday. Anyway, joining me now from the Taxpayers Union is James Ross. James, good afternoon.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me on, Leah.
So Willis could have done that in 2 minutes, James, really. And then they just could have all, shook hands and gone to the pub.
Well, given it's just copying Grant Robertson's homework, I'm sure she could have done it nice and quick.
Well, you've crunched the numbers, my friend. We're heading for over $108,000, you say, of debt per household by 2029. Is this sustainable, or are we just the proverbial kicking the can down the road?
No, is the answer to that. This isn't sustainable. So this was pitched as a sensible budget and a responsible budget, and it's nothing of the sort. Now, spending is up. In fact, spending for the next 2 years as a share of the economy is bigger than at any point under Grant Robertson. Debt keeps spiraling. By 2029, every household in the country is going to be paying $5,700 plus just on the interest on that debt, which is more than is spent on primary schools, secondary schools, and the police combined. It's running away. There's no plans whatsoever to get back into a surplus. Things are looking pretty bad. Not to be too doom and gloom.
No. But I mean, with all their cutting and supposedly getting rid of red tape and getting rid of public servants, how have we got here?
Well, I think the issue is that we talked about this parental support test. Great, that's amazing, but it's pretty small fry in the grand scheme of things, and we've got a government which isn't willing to look at the big issues. This is pitched as a pro-growth budget, and yet their headline, and frankly largely only pro-growth policy in this budget, by their own measures, will lead to a 1% increase in GDP over 20 years. And that's not 1% every year, that's 1% over the entire 20 years. It's next to nothing, and I think that's the fundamental problem with this budget, is that Nicola Willis just wasn't willing to go far enough.
And when you say far, James, what do you want to say? What should have she done?
Yeah, well, I mean, even just using that example, so what we've been calling for is something called full capital expensing. So Nicola Willis has proposed a 20% sort of accelerated deduction for businesses investing in machinery. That should have been 100%. I mean, that's how you really get growth. It's enshrined in Canada and the US and the UK, and it's amazing bang for buck. Seriously, one of the
Why was
best
she
bang
not
for
that
buck policies
brave?
you could dream of.
What was the excuse she used for 20%, not 100?
Well, the excuse was that it would cost too much because there are sort of upfront costs
Sure.
to full capital expenditure.
Yeah, I think she said it would cost about $8 billion, is what she was saying.
And frankly, we've asked Nicola Willis where those figures come from. They don't seem credible to me at all. Now, when this was tried in the UK, the Institute for Fiscal Studies over there estimated it would be $1 to $3 billion a year. Now, obviously, the UK is a much larger economy than we have here in New Zealand. It just doesn't stack up to me.
The budget's headline act was the investment boost, which you've called a flop. What's the core issue here from your perspective, James?
Well, the investment boost, that's the 20% accelerated deduction. So the issue is that it just doesn't go far enough. Now, it was pitched, in fact, in an interview a couple of days before the budget. Christopher Luxon was talking about full capital expensing, and it just seems like they lost the bottle. They lost the nerve on it, unfortunately. And that's going to have real knock-on effects on growth.
Yeah.
And frankly, that's why the books are in such a bad state.
What do you make of the spending on, education, $2.5 billion over 4 years, health also got a boost? I mean, KiwiSaver's been tweaked. What did you make of that?
Yeah, so I mean, on the first two, health and education, obviously, we've seen falling standards and outcomes. They do need investment. The question is, where is that money coming from? And I don't think those are questions that have really been answered. At the minute, it just seems like they're going on the credit card.
Yeah.
And with KiwiSaver, in fact, it was a real bizarre moment. So I was inside the lockup for the Treasury briefing. And obviously, Nicola Willis has halved the government contribution. When she was asked why she did that, she admitted in front of everybody in there that Treasury's officials have said it doesn't affect enrollment at all. We don't need it, and yet it's still there. That is quite literally billions of dollars that is being committed over the next 5 years for something that the finance minister herself
has just said
recognises doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, it doesn't make people sign up just for $260 a year.